really struggled before starting this group was just like, you know, wanting to have healthy, delicious meals and maybe like not giving myself the brain space to do it. And I think that like this class has really helped. I mean, it's not really a class. I mean, this group, all of us talking together. I'm a big talker, as you can obviously tell. And like, I generate ideas through talking and listening to other people. And I think this has helped me like make some space in my brain to think about food instead of just getting frustrated and being like, oh my God, we're eating the same thing again, or I don't want to cook this again, or whatever. And you know, one of the great things about it is like being able to just go in somebody's pantry and find stuff and cook something. Or like I mentioned that I have not bought a rotisserie chicken, which was like a staple in our house since we started doing this. So I think it really helps you like get out of your own way. That's how I would describe it.
I love that. And you know, if there's ever a chicken like a dog, hopefully the rotisserie, like the dog wouldn't eat the whole rotisserie. But,
Yeah.
but there's always that chance. So, and Amy, we love having you in the group. And you mentioned you're from Austin, Texas, right?
Yes.
It must be very hot there right now because it's really hot in Boston.
It's been raining so much here. It was hotter in South Carolina than it is here.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
All right. So Colleen, why don't you do a quick intro? And also if you felt comfortable sharing anything. I know you've had a couple really busy weeks.
Yeah.
Colleen just moved, so go ahead.
You're introducing.
Yeah, hello. Hello and welcome everyone to the call. So my name is Colleen Guerriero. I live in just outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. And I am married. I have 2 kids, but one's away. She just graduated college, so I don't think she's coming home. But she was just home for the last 6 days, and I was trying to get her to taste some of my stuff that I learned from you guys. And some things she liked and some things she didn't like, and that's fine. I joined, I've actually been coaching with Jenny for several years, and last year, 2 years ago, I was getting a master's and I stopped cooking altogether, and I was just eating, you know, prepackaged foods through one of those programs to help you lose weight, which I didn't lose any weight. I just hadn't, you know, was just eating that so I wouldn't have to cook. And so last year I said, you know what, I really need a fresh start. And I want to become more of an intuitive cook. And I don't want to get stressed at the thought of making meals for my family and for people when they come over. And so to me, this was a really easy way, like where you can crawl before you walk, before you run, to get introduced to different concepts and ideas. Jenny and Arlene are so patient and so helpful and so full of amazing information. I feel like a different person today than I did a little over a year ago when we started, and I even took a break to finish my master's. But I feel more comfortable, and I don't get stressed when I go to the store. I mean, just learning little things about what to have in your house, what to keep in your pantry, learning what you like, what your family likes. One of my biggest accomplishments was going through a whole spice bottle and having to replace it since I would buy something and never use it again. So it's just getting really comfortable with creating meals that make you feel good, that your family loves, that you enjoy cooking. And so through this journey, cooking has become leisure for me and not work. And it's almost a form of meditation. And so it's been an incredible year for me. I really enjoyed it. And I also feel like when I'm really busy at work, because I do work and I carve out this time during my workday, and I think, oh, I'm so busy, maybe I shouldn't join. And I say, no, this is your time, Colleen. And it's that time where I can just forget about the craziness of the day and do something for me. So I really like it for that reason too.
Oh, I love that. It is really for you. And it's about just you feeling confident in the kitchen and feeling like, I got this. Like, I don't have to be so rushed around, and I don't have to feel like there's no plan, and I just have to be spontaneous all the time. That's so great. Thank you. And Mom, do you want to do just a very quick intro of your background and credentials and so forth?
Yeah, sure. Let me see how quickly I can do this. So I've been working in restaurants, catering. I taught at the French Culinary Institute. I've had private students. I've had a food business. So I have a pretty lengthy history with food. I also Used to write and develop recipes for Fine Cooking magazine and for the Boston Globe. So anyway, now I just enjoy teaching other people. I like to share my knowledge. I've picked up lots of useful tips working in the restaurant industry. And I feel that people spend so much time stressing about recipes, having to follow them so precisely. My philosophy is that a recipe is really just a guide, and that you have to use your palate, your preferences, your imagination, and just use a recipe as a skeleton and build from there. And if something doesn't taste right, what we teach here is for you to try to figure out, does it need acid? Does it need salt? Does it need more fat? And et cetera, et cetera. And I think that our students have come quite a long way. I'm very, very proud of the independence that they're showing in their cooking and meal planning. So my role is very different, Jenny, than yours. Jennifer is the leader of the group. And this all stems out of her incredible counseling practice. So Jenny, you take it over.
Okay, I will. Thanks for that. You're very modest. Arlene worked in some of the top restaurants in New York City under the auspices of some of the top chefs in New York City, and graduated with honors from the French Culinary Institute. So she really has the credentials here. On the other hand, I've been a coach for 20 years. I worked in the health and weight management company for 13 years. And what I bring to this is, yes, I facilitate the class, but also my passion is helping people create behavioral change in their lives in a compassionate way. We're so used to being like almost forced or bullied into making changes and in this really judgmental way. It's not patient, it's not caring and understanding. And there's, of course, people give up on their health goals or cooking goals or anything else because failure is a big visceral feeling, and it's enough to topple you. It's enough to make you not want to try anymore. And so my philosophy is always about consciously, gently, but also like confidently getting yourself back up, trying again. And so that's something that I'm really passionate about, as well as mindful and intuitive eating and culinary nutrition. So whereas Arlene is bringing a lot of the cooking sort of mentorship, if you will, I'm the one kind of bringing in some of the nutritional information, how it's going to support your body, the meal planning kind of things, how you're planning in advance and thinking about what is it that you want to eat this week? How do you want to feed your family? What are the challenges that are going to get in the way? How are you going to solve those problems? So you can see it's really well-rounded. And I'm just really thrilled that you're both here to share in the class today. So hopefully you got the email. And what we're going to do, we have different sort of themes every week in our class. And last week, Amy gave us a recipe that just didn't quite work for her. It's something that has potential, that she knows that she would like and her family would like, but when she tried it, it just didn't work. And I'm sure everybody's had that experience where it's like, oh, this recipe looks so good. And then you make it and you're like, what happened? Why was this so not good? And so Arlene went in and sort of improved upon the recipe, which is what she's going to demo today. And then after we see this demo, we're going to brainstorm and look from our own palettes, kind of make additional suggestions, like how can we improve this even further? Or what would you make changes to? So that's going to be our theme for today. And Arlene, I'll let you have the floor. So you can go ahead and introduce what you, and I emailed the recipe and I put it in the Facebook group. So hopefully everybody will have it.
Okay.
So go for it.
Sure. Well, here's a copy of the recipe that Amy put online, posted, and I printed it out. And I looked at it and thought about it and decided to make a few particular changes. So I've got it's all messed up with my notes here. But the thing is that Amy said two of the problems that she had was, one, the sauce was very hot and spicy, and that's what it was, right, Amy? Did I get it
Yeah,
right?
it was really like mustardy, like the mustard. There was so much mustard. It was just so strong.
Okay, well, this is what I decided. I decided, first of all, to I cut the recipe proportions in half because it would have been too much sauce to begin with. But I added 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise to mellow the flavor, because that seemed to be what your problem was. And then there were 2 tablespoons of honey, 2 tablespoons Dijon mustard. No, the Dijon mustard I eliminated. I didn't see the need for 2 mustards. And since the whole grain mustard has a texture, a little crunch when you bite into it, I thought that would be so much nicer in the sauce. And I also thought it would look really nice to have these little dots in the little balls floating around in the sauce. And instead of 2 heaping tablespoons of horseradish, I put 1 tablespoon of the horseradish. This is bottled horseradish for everybody. And you should look at the site because you'll find the recipe there. That recipe, and you should find my recipe, my adaptation. And salt and freshly ground pepper, both are necessary. I'm a big proponent of using salt for your flavorings and acids as well. And because of that, I tasted it after adding the salt and pepper, and it just needed a little something extra. I wonder if any of my students can guess what I would have chosen as my extra ingredient to make it just right. To liven it up, brighten it up.
Oh, lemon juice?
Lemon juice. Because I always talk in this group about when you're not sure, when something's missing, it might be something you tasted, it tastes good, but it just doesn't like really excite your appetite. Then it might be salt, it might be acid. Those are the 2 first things that I go to. After that, there are other things you can, you think about sweetness. Sometimes I add a pinch of sugar to something which you would never think to put sugar in, but like say you're using some tomatoes that are out of season. Most of the year, the tomatoes don't have much sweetness to them. You want to make them taste better, you add a pinch of sugar. That sort of thing. And what we try to do here is to help you understand what makes something taste really great. Now, I'm not saying that I'm making this recipe taste really great because I tested the mustard sauce. The next thing I did, Amy said that she didn't feel that it warranted spending so much money for a triple creme cheese, which is what by the way, this recipe is by Bobby Flay, and I'm sure most of you have heard of him. So she didn't want to spend the money on a triple creme cheese just for a chicken dish. So this is what I came up with. I came up with my own version, which is where, here, hold on a sec.
I'm actually trying to put the recipe up.
Oh, what did I do with it? Oh, maybe I have it up on the table. Let me go to the table then. Did I? No.
I'm actually going to share the recipe in the group because I have it.
Share it in the group because I just took it out, put it somewhere, and it's missing.
No worries.
Anyway, I know what was in it. It was what I did for the triple creme for the richness and the fattiness of a triple cream cheese. Softened it, and then to give it that really good umami, cheesy flavor, I added grated Parmesan. And then to round it out, well, then a generous pinch of salt brings it all together. And then a quarter of a teaspoon of garlic powder that just doesn't really taste garlicky, but it gives it a little something extra. And finally, a pinch of cayenne, because that's piquant and it brings it up high, brings the level up. So it tastes pretty good. It's not a triple creme cheese, but I think for its purpose, since it's going to be buried in the rolled up in the chicken, it's going to serve its purpose. And so that's another component. And the final component is just like the recipe says. I used baby arugula. I quickly sauteed it with some garlic and red pepper flakes, salt, and black pepper. And the recipe is very explicit about, you know, how to use it and how to do things. So, you know, you bring it to the right consistency. We don't want it watery. If yours is watery, you want to squeeze it out. I'd love to show you every step, but I don't think we have the time for that. But the one step that sort of confounded you, Amy, right, was how to roll it up and get it to stay together. And since I haven't tested it, but I've done things like this in the past, we're gonna experiment together and hope it all works out, okay?
It's a live demo, guys.
And all right, so now I'm going over to my table here where I've got stuff laid out, and I'm gonna try to get it so that you can see what I'm doing on the table. I'm not a very good tech person, but I'm gonna do my best. So, and you probably won't be able to see me and the food at the same time. So tell me if you can see my surface.
Yep.
Yes.
And is this good like that?
Yes.
Okay. Here are the chicken cutlets. Now, oh, another change I made is that I bought the thin cut chicken cutlets. So why not have the butcher do it for you before, right? So you don't have to stress over it. The next thing, what I'm going to attempt to do, oh yeah, the next thing I did was I really patted it dry, because what I'm going to attempt to do, I'm going to get more paper towels, in fact, because some liquid went, you know, dripped out of it. You want them kind of a little sticky, because I'm going to try to stick them, overlap and stick them onto each other. So hang on half a sec. And what I'm going to do is lay them out on this piece of parchment paper, one at a time. So I'm just going to pat the bottoms now.
And that's just so that
They even stick to the paper towel. Yeah, I'm going to lay it out like this. And then I'm going to put another. Put it right on top. I'm gonna think it's thinner up at the end. I'm gonna like fold it over. What we're trying to do here is get an even thickness. And then, see. By having them thin like this, Amy, in particular, it's easier to roll them, for one thing. I'm gonna fold this over too, because it's very thin. And then,
but if you got the thick ones, you could just pound them down, right? Or cut them in half?
I would cut them in half first and then pound them down. I'd cut them in half, you know, horizontally, which you would do. I'll just show you with a knife. I'll pretend to show you. What you would do is you'd put your hand on the breast and you slide your knife sideways, and you just do like a zigzag motion sideways, and you cut him in half. So, okay, everything's still clear? You can still see clearly everything here?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Now I'm going to get another piece of parchment from right here. Hold on. I'm trying to get everything organized like in advance as much as I can, but sometimes it's hard to think of everything. Okay. Now I'm not going to have to pound this too much, because I'm going for like about 1/4 of an inch. So I get my pounder. There's various ways to do that. I use this when I'm making pickling things. To force the you want to tighten it down into the jar, but for my purposes, I'm just pounding on the parts that are thicker.
It's also good if you're really angry one day and you just want to get your aggression out. It's a great way to do it. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
So what I'm trying to do.
Fold it over. Are you pounding like the folded part so that it gets wider?
Well, I'll let you see what's happening. See, this one it's already stuck to that one, but I'm going to move it up a little further. So the thin parts are overlapping each other. It's sort of like they're all sort of on the bias. This one is my thickest one. like it's very thick up there. I think I'll turn it around so I'll get two thin sides together over there. And then I'll bring this one a little bit closer. And now I'm just going for it. It's high here from, one of them is just so much thicker than the others. I would love to get a perfect rectangle, but I don't think that nature will allow that. So
my 11-year-old's always asking me to get her a punching bag for when she's like in a bad mood. I'm like, I'll just let her do this every night.
we did a lesson with her on making
That's right.
yeah, chicken fingers like this. Okay, so I think that that's about as far as I'm going to go. I'm going to thin it down here because this is the side that I'm going to start on. So I'm going to put the arugula. Oh, and then if you happen to not have this handy tool, you can use a heavy pan or saucepan, a little noisier, but it'll do the job, okay? So that gives you an idea of where we start. All right, a little salt and pepper. I'll be right with you. Forgot to bring the salt out.
And Amanda and Rhoda, feel free to unmute if you have questions or put it in the chat if anything comes up for you that, you know, for instance, one thing that came up for me is if you don't, you know, the parchment paper often comes in rolls. You can just pull and rip it off, but there are also some specialty stores. There's one right near me that you can buy a huge pack of them that are already pre-cut to fit a sheet pan. And I think that's the kind that you have. Yeah.
I get it online from King Arthur Baking.
So
wonderful thing.
One of the things that I do after each class is create a resource list in a PDF. So Amanda and Rhoda, for those of you who don't know, we have a whole online portal as well, where all of the recordings from the last year plus is in there, plus tons of recipes and PDFs with different resources, including King Arthur Baking, other types of places that you can get fresh herbs and or spices in bulk and things like that. So
and what to keep in your pantry, that sort of thing.
That's right. So anything that comes from this class, I'm gonna gather all those gems, put it in a PDF, and when I will email both of you and everyone else who RSVP'd that resource page as well.
Okay, Jen. I'm back.
Okay.
Another thing I did that deviates from the recipe a bit was he recommends putting the prosciutto on now. I'm going to put the cheese on first because the cheese is going to help this stick together better. It's kind of like the glue. So here's the cheese. And I'm just going to spread it all over. I'm not putting it to the very, very ends because when I roll and press, they're going to squish out a little bit. So I don't want a big mess.
So you're rolling it as one big piece and then you cut it?
I'm going to treat it as one big piece.
Oh, that's probably easier than trying to do each one.
Yes.
Yes. I'm sure it is.
All right, so I'm just getting it a little, sort of evening it out a bit. And now it's the glue that is going to hold all of it together. I hope.
That's the goal.
Yeah. If not, it will be fun having watched me put this all together. Okay, next is the prosciutto. By the way, I invited 2 friends to come over tonight to eat this because I'm not going to have the time to cook it in front of you. But what I will do is photograph the finished product and we'll put it on tomorrow. The recipe's on there already, right, Jennifer?
Yep.
Okay. So this is a really nice prosciutto that I'm tearing apart.
Obviously, this is a wonderful vegan meal.
Yeah. Well, but Jennifer, I did think of a very nice thing to do with this. you girls from the South are all familiar with pimento cheese, right? That's Southern,
Yeah.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Which I think is so delicious. And I thought of ways of rolling the pimento cheese up in bread, and you could add, certain vegetables of choice and so on. And you roll out the bread with a rolling pin, so the bread's thin and pliable. You would use like the sandwich bread, white sandwich bread, and then dip it in an egg wash, like you would for French toast,
Mm-hmm.
and then in panko, and then cook it in, just saute it in a pan.
Could you talk about, when you're done, other variations of this type of a method?
Yeah, totally. Well, I can talk while I'm fiddling around here, and then I'll switch back and forth. Okay, I think this is enough. And finally, here's by the way, I use my hands. I was teaching a student just on Monday, and we were wrapping sweetbreads and bacon. And I mean, I had the gloves on, and finally I said, if my hands are clean, I wash them frequently when I'm cooking, because right now they're a little greasy, and I don't like that. So I run back and forth to the sink. So don't feel that when you're cooking at home for your family, if you're in a restaurant, you have to use gloves, but if you're cooking at home, I don't think you need to bother.
You sauteed this first? Sorry, you sauteed this first?
Yeah. Oh, and the beauty of this recipe, by the way, is you can make all the components in advance. You can make the cheese in advance. You can make the sauce in advance. I'll show you the sauce, by the way. You can have all these made, like if you're having company, of course you could double it. This serves 4. But here's the sauce. Can you see?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And it tastes really good. However, if you're making that sauce and you put in I think a teaspoon of lemon juice is what I called for, and you think it needs more, you put more in. That's the thing. Do not be enslaved by the recipe. So, all right, here goes. I'm using this to help me. I'm using the parchment to help me.
Like sushi.
And now, going back the parchment, and now I'm going to tighten it up.
Is that what you did, Amy?
Absolutely not. It was a mess.
Proud that you tried it. My goodness, it's an elaborate recipe.
It is. It is. And I have to say, they must have different recipe writers for different Food Network people, because his recipes are terrible, terribly written.
I have to say, I'm very mistrustful of recipes that are appear online, unless it's the New York Times or even like Bon Appetit puts recipes on, and I think they just pick up the recipes and they just hire somebody who who comes up with some version of the recipe. I don't think they're well enough tested.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got a little leakage there, but that's not going to be a problem. And now, as you can see, I've been manipulating it, squishing it around to try to get a nice even sausage-like shape. And now I'm going to I turned it around, and now I'm going to roll it up like this.
Nice and clean.
And
Oh, you're just going to cook it in the paper?
no,
Oh, okay.
no. Now I'm going to put it in to, hope I don't mess it up here.
I'm thinking you have to refrigerate it for a little while so it gets firmer before you cut.
Exactly.
Okay.
Very good. Good thinking. So I'm going to put it seam side down in here. Try to stretch it out a bit.
So I have a question about touching the chicken and touching everything else, because I'm paranoid.
Yes.
So I see you rolled the chicken, you're touching the wrap, you're touching everything. Do you not have the same fears, Arlene?
No. I've been doing this forever, and I've never gotten sick. And I think that the chicken today, if you buy, I mean, I buy, you know, at Whole Foods or some good place. I don't buy like cheap chickens. All right, so now I'm twisting the ends a lot to make it really tight, to make this really tight. So there, you don't have to use any string. You don't have to use any, I mean, I think it's fairly easy. You want to like roll it around a little bit. And now it's going to sit in the fridge till I'm ready to use it. When I'm ready to use it, I'll cut it into whatever size. I would cut it into 4. Cut in the middle and cut either side. You will saute those 4. You saute them in a little oil and then you add butter. I would saute those 4 and, you know, roll them around. It's not, you don't have to do for a very long time. Remember, everything in here is okay except the chicken itself has to cook, but it's very thin chicken. It's, you don't have all that much there. And so that's going to sit in the fridge. It's going to cook. I'm going to cook it up tonight, and I will try to do some kind of a demo. I'll do a photograph, and if it's good, I'll let you know. And if it's not good, I will tell you what's wrong with it, if there's anything that we can learn from this. Okay?
But wait, so you cut it, and then how? I didn't look at the recipe.
You cut it,
fully,
cut it in half. Oh, okay. Let me go back. I cut it in half, cut it into 4 bigger pieces.
Yeah.
And then you saute it. You know, you
In a
roll it
pan.
in a pan. I think you've got 4 pieces. They're separated. You roll it in the pan, and then once it's cooked, they'll be firmer, more firm. Some of the cheese is gonna ooze. There's no, you know, you can't do much about that. But I would have needed a little more chicken because I can see some of the oozing starting to happen a little bit here.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's gonna be a big deal. So then you have your little pieces. Well, let me show you. So you have your little quarters, right? You cut them in 4. And then to serve it, I would just cut it in half again, put 2 pieces on each plate. And I'm gonna make some starch to go with it. And then you garnish it, decorate it with a little bit of the arugula. It's an extra. I'd save some backs for the to garnish the plate.
But when you're sauteing it, is it up down or is it sideways?
Sideways.
But then
right.
it doesn't, and you just like cook and then you swirl it over and then cook the other side, and because it's round, how do you do that?
Yeah, you're gonna sort of push it around. You're gonna say this is 1 small piece. You're gonna put it down and let it brown for a couple of minutes.
Oh, and then just move it
and roll. And,
okay.
And you know,
Like the sausage.
You take a spatula with you. If you had the proper kind of pan, like a large oval pan, you could do it like in 2, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And do remove the paper before you put it in the pan.
You can't eat the paper? What?
And wouldn't it be, well, you know what? That's not a bad idea to roll it in like a blanched cabbage leaf or a Swiss chard leaf. It would look beautiful.
Yeah.
And that would help you even more. You wouldn't get the browning on the chicken so much, but it would be very delicious and probably work even better. So yeah, so that's that, and I'm going to put this in the fridge right away, and I will report back later in the day.
I'm so excited.
Yeah,
Well,
it looks so pretty too.
Other things that you can do. I'm sorry, was there a question?
I just said fingers crossed that it comes out good.
No.
Okay.
So you don't have to tie it because, so like the recipe said to tie it with string, you don't have to tie it because you're putting it in the fridge and getting it really cold, right? And you rolled it up and everything?
Yes, I mean, if it starts coming apart on you, tying isn't gonna do very much good at that point, you know.
Yeah, yeah, it just made everything explode.
In his recipe, you used 1 breast at a time.
Yeah.
Right? You rolled it up, so you've tied that 1 breast. Here we've pounded them, and then it's very thin, and we put the cheese right on the, hopefully to be the glue. Put it right on the chicken, and now we pray a lot. Okay? And so all right. I'll be back, Jen. I'll be back.
Yeah, because I want to hear about like other methods to make, like, I wonder, could you do it with steak? Like, is this the same
Oh
thing?
yeah, yeah. I've actually done one with steak. You get a flank steak and you can put like goat cheese and sun-dried tomatoes. I have a great recipe for that, and roll it up and cook it and then cut it. That to me was a little bit easier, I think, because it was one big piece of steak. And so it might have been as big as those 4 pieces of chicken. So there was no leaking because, you know, it was one thing.
Yeah. I'm just also like, I feel like there's so many variations you could make of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like with the chicken, you could put a pesto inside instead. You could eliminate the cheese altogether. You could put
Okay, like you could
vegetables.
get pesto, you would add some breadcrumbs, or you would add some like almond flour, almond meal to give it a pasty consistency. And then you could wrap, trying to think of a thinly sliced vegetable like eggplant. Thinly sliced eggplant that's been slightly sauteed, and wrap that around it, and then wrap all that in Swiss chard leaf. You could use any kind of stuffing that has, use bread or rice or beans as your thickener, your paste that would hold your seasonings. I was thinking that you could even do like shredded beef or chili type beef. Well, this is not for you, Jen, but if you want to use that, and sort of roll it in a tortilla, and then you would make a paste from your beans, your refried beans, lay them on there, shredded meat and cheese, and roll it in a tortilla. And you could use this method. As long as you've got that paste glue to hold it together and then put it in the fridge, I think that you probably would do okay. So I think the possibilities are endless, just really endless. Cheeses of all kinds, doesn't have to be expensive cheese. Duxelles, a mushroom, it's like a puree of mushrooms, very sticky. Lay that on like a white flour tortilla, or put it on chicken, put it on even fish. Like I've made roll-ups with fish.
Oh, like salmon or something?
Oh yeah.
A thin fillet, like a thin white fillet. You put like the duxelle on top, the mushrooms on top, and maybe put an asparagus spear and roll it around the asparagus and mushrooms. And then you could do it with some other thing, beans or whatever. Anyway, you got the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Any questions or comments? Also, since I mentioned we could all brainstorm and see, like, given our own palates and our own intuition, and we all, like Arlene said, we're always going to bring something a little bit different to every meal, every recipe that you cook. So just from what you have learned so far, or Amanda and Rhoda, feel free to chime in if you've made something like this, or have an idea, what something that could make it even pop even further, or be improved upon even further. If you have any thoughts, we'd love to hear that. Because I made something last night that I'm getting inspired now, because I had it for lunch today. I use Purple Carrot, which is a meal kit delivery service, because I'm vegan, my family's not. Anyway, it's this like lentils with mustard and a vegan mayonnaise. And I made this, like, I broiled their artichokes. I broiled the artichokes and chopped up some shallots and walnuts, and then made this, and parsley, and made this a mixture with like walnuts and it was, what else? There was tons of stuff in there, like the artichokes, the walnuts, and then it was the mayo and the mustard, and I smeared it on the artichokes and then broiled it, and it's so good. And I have it with the lentils and green beans, and there's something so amazing about putting something and then rolling it up. Why is that? Why do we love rolling stuff up and putting fillings in? And like, I mean, I can do that. I could see doing this with a tortilla, but I can't picture anything vegan that I could actually put that inside of. It was
large leaves for sure, and you could overlap those leaves. Yeah, 'cause think
Mhm.
about, good old fashioned stuffed cabbage that our grandmothers have been making
That's
for
true.
forever. Also, well, you wouldn't be quite rolling, but you could stuff large peppers. Stuffing
Mm.
things is a very nice thing to do.
We love to
And
stuff and
if
roll
we
and
think about it long enough, we'd probably come up with some more things that you could overlap. For example, here's an idea. Like for a party, you could take like salami, sliced salami, and they'll stick together if you overlap them on a parchment paper and fill it with, I don't know, some kind of a pickle relish and whatever else you think you might like in there. Um, Crushed potato chips or something, and roll it up and again tie it with the saran wrap. Makes it really tight, and then you could just cut them into little pieces for hors d'oeuvres. That's what I'm talking about. You sprinkle some crushed French fries on potato chips on top. You know,
Sky's the limit.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. My kids love a mozzarella cheese stick wrapped up with a big piece of salami.
There you go. There you
Mm-hmm.
go. Yeah.
That's interesting. I used to actually do that similar because there's something about like wrapping and then you get this like nice surprise in the middle. Kids love that. It's amazing.
Especially something that melts.
Yeah, like mozzarella sticks.
Oozy, yeah.
Yeah, there was something so special about this, the walnut and the mustard and the mayo and the parsley.
Post a recipe for us.
I will. I'm smearing it on a vegetable and then broiling it, and it got all like baked and stuff. It was so good. Yeah, and I don't
Was
know.
it a whole artichoke?
No, it was just a can of like artichoke hearts. And
You laid them out and then put this topping on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like something I'd like to try. So.
Yeah, I'll post the recipe. Okay, so unless there's any other comments or questions, we are going to summarize. And normally what we do when we summarize class, this is one type of session that we would have where we're doing a demo and different things like that. Other times we'll have like a sort of a topic, let's say spices, and we'll talk about all the different ways that you can use spices in your cooking. Which flavors go with what types of dishes, et cetera, et cetera. And so we wanted you guys who are watching today in this open house to get a sense of like some of the things that we covered. And typically at the end of class, I like to kind of go back and be like, well, what did you get out of class today? Like, what are you gonna bring forward? What are you gonna utilize? What's inspiring you? What's your intention for the week? And not just, and your intention necessarily for what you're gonna cook, but this is also about your health and your overall self-care. And this class is self-care. This is your time. This is our time where we can troubleshoot not just like cooking and meal planning, but also like we talk about fitness, like how are we doing in terms of, moving our bodies? How are we doing in terms of like making sure we're having nutrient dense foods in our snacks and our foods and meals and so forth. And other types of stress reduction, things like that. So in summarizing for today, I would love to hear from Amy and Colleen, of course, but also Amanda and Rhoda, if you felt like sharing, no pressure whatsoever. I would love to hear, like, what inspired you today? What are you going to bring forward? What are some priorities that you have this week around meals that you're going to make, planning for the week, and things like that? So Colleen, let's start with you.
Okay. The big thing that I took away from this is, and you guys have been talking about this forever, is that it's not about telling us exactly what to do, but to get us thinking about how we can accomplish the goal. And so what you did today, Arlene, was you took a recipe that told you to do something completely different, and you thought about what you wanted to accomplish. And you thought a better way to do that would be to roll it up as one big piece, which I don't think I would have thought of. I would have just followed the recipe to a T. And so it's going to get me to think more about, and if there's a picture, because I'm looking at that picture and the edges are so fine. And if you took just a single piece of chicken and rolled it and then tried to cut it, there's not going to be a fine edge on every single piece because there's going to be, right? Because there's going to be.
Well, I don't promise any fine edges either.
It looks terrible.
Well, that was my last question was, what kind of knife are you going to use to cut it? It's going to be a really
Probably serrated knife.
Serrated knife. Okay.
Yeah, probably.
So it's every time I watch, I'm always getting little nuggets that will help me think about things differently. And then moving forward, so I didn't get to tell you guys this yet, but my sister, her two boys, and my mom and stepfather are coming tomorrow for the week, for like a week.
Wow.
And I'm not completely unpacked and settled in my house. It's making me feel a little anxious, and I haven't gone grocery shopping yet. And I gave myself permission to stop stressing because work's really intense right now. And when they get here, I'll go do a shopping trip, and I'm not going to worry about it. It doesn't have to be perfect when they get here. And so I do want to spend some time tonight just thinking about what meals I want to cook for them, and I want to expose them to some new things.
Make it easy. Easy meals.
Easy meals, yeah, easy meals. And then we're having my first barbecue in a year and a half, actually probably in 3 years, on Sunday with my family and one other couple who's vaccinated are coming over. And excited. Everyone, my friend's going to bring some things. We're going to do some grilling. And so maybe I'll think of one thing that I want to bring or that I want to make that is, something that aligns with what I like and I want to expose them to. But I'm not going to go crazy. Lots of grilling and simple things and salads and stuff.
And I also, like, I know you, there's a part of you probably that you want to impress them. Like, look at all the stuff I know now. Look at all the things I can do. Yeah. But just remember, like, you and your mom had so much fun just creating a meal together, right? And it's about just spending time after so long, sharing in food and celebrating. And whatever you make, it's going to be fun because you're going to be together and you're going to be having fun, So, like, just remember, make, like you said, like Arlene said, really simple meals, but just give everyone a job and, like, make it this, like, really collaborative process, like I know your mom likes to,
all the good stuff.
One more thing I want to interrupt with is we were hoping, Colleen, that you would have a recipe that you have made in the past that gave you a hard time that you would like to improve upon, and then we will all work on it together next week.
Okay. All right. Let me think about that.
If you can post it on the site.
Okay.
We'll all think about it, okay? And we'll all come up with some easy solutions.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll do that.
Yeah, I'm already brainstorming, like, what's good for a crowd. Like, we'll come up with some ideas for you before you go shopping. Amy, what about you? Did you feel like you actually found this to be something that you could use and improve upon for next time?
Yeah. I never would have thought to put the chicken together either. I was just, it was like, the more I worked on that, the more frustrated I got. And I was like, this is just becoming more of a disaster. But, the funny thing is, everyone liked it. They didn't care that it was a mess. They thought, I'm sitting there going, oh, the cheese is over here, but it's not over here, But yeah, it also made, I want to try it that way, but it also made me think, like, Colleen, I love your chicken marsala recipe. And I was like, oh, maybe I could do like cook the sauce and the mushrooms and put it inside the chicken instead of like on top of the chicken. Yeah. Or I could make like eggplant roll-ups with cheese and, kind of like eggplant Parmesan with the Parmesan in the middle or something like that. Because my kids love fried eggplant. So yeah, it just, it gave me a lot of ideas, and it just made me think about, like, okay, well, next time I'm making something and it's not going right, maybe I just need to stop and sit there and say, okay, well, what's going wrong and what could I do differently,
Absolutely. And I think that's been the theme throughout, is that we get so caught up. Colleen, you said it last week, like, you need the rules, you need it written down, you need structure, you want that. Yeah. But it really is just a crutch, because the more and more that you trust yourself, the more and more you realize you know much more than you think you do. And that a lot of these recipes are flawed anyway. They're not well developed necessarily. And that your own flavor guide and your intuition can be really front and center and make it spectacular without, just having the courage to experiment. And yes, you're not going to do that when you have a dinner party. You're not going to experiment then, but like weekday cooking, like, that's exactly what it's for. Sometimes it's going to be a disaster and sometimes it won't, but that's how you learn, right?
And if it looks like a mess, just take some fresh herbs and sprinkle them over the top.
That's a good idea.
Remember that movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding? And she's
yeah.
like, just use Windex for everything. And you're like, just spread some herbs on it and you got a meal. Anyway, well, this has been fabulous. Thank you both so much, all of you. And Amanda, Rhoda, thanks for auditing and coming to our little open house for today. Hopefully you enjoyed it, you learned a lot. And I will be sending an email in the coming days with a little resource page, the recipes once again, and there was something else, and the photo. If you can send the photo, I'll send that along.
It turns out, if not, it'll be covered with herbs.
And maybe some Windex.
A little Windex on top.
All right, so we will be back same time, same place next week. Good luck, everyone, and thanks again for joining. And we'll bid adieu. Have a great week, everyone.
Have a good week. Bye-bye.
Bye.